Now, I want to welcome you to our first keynote of the day. This keynote is with Adwait Joshi, who is one of our prime community members. He is the founder of DataSeers, and he will tell us all about how they use HP systems in these critical production-ready environments. Welcome, Adwait, and let's have a chat.
Thank you, Flavio, for the introduction. And yes, that's right. Some of you have seen me before speak at the in-person HPCC events. This is a little bit different. So for those who know me, I will be giving a little bit of update of who we are and where we are. And for those who don't know me, I am the CEO of DataSeers. I call myself the Chief Seer because everything is around the word seer. What actually means is to see. And the motto of our organization is to see through data. So we see things through data that other people cannot. And to be honest, HPCC helps us unlock that. So what do we see through data? So we are in the financial services space. We look at financial transactions and consumer profiles, risk rate them, and try to figure out if they are trying to launder money, if they are trying to commit fraud, if they're trying to steal somebody's identity, amongst a lot of things. But we just have not stopped there. We actually have created an ecosystem where that data can be used in multiple different ways beyond fraud and risk, which obviously happens to be a big problem in the industry today. But the same data can be used for traditional analytics. So things like, why am I losing customers? How can I gain more customers? What are my consumers trying to tell me? What are my most profitable channels? What are my least profitable channels? That way you can control where do you spend the marketing dollars. Things like on finance is when I'm reconciling my books, adding all the money at the end of the day, who do I owe how much, who owes me how much? All of that is driven through the same data. So think about it that we do ETL once, and all of these insights are unlocked across multiple different channels. And that's what we as a company do. I always tell people that we are the middle office and back office solution for banking and payments, which doesn't sound too sexy, but that's where actually the work gets done, right? That's where the real day-to-day operations are, which basically means that it may not be sexy, but it's super sticky. And because of what we do and how we do it, it actually ends up being really good looking and super sexy on top of HPCC.
That's great. That is a great introduction and a good segue to some of the topics that I want to cover in this discussion. One of those is which parts as a component does HP Systems play in your ecosystem? So what aspects of your business are handled by HP Systems and which ones are handled by other technology platforms?
Yeah. To talk about that, you have to understand some of the problems that exist in the space today. Like, for example, when a bank says, okay, I want to work with a new fintech, or I want to work with a new processor. And a processor is nothing but a person who is processing the payments. There are many out there. We are in Atlanta, so we can give shout out to like the FISs of the world, the Global Payments, the World Pays, and so on and so forth, the TCCs. Each one has their processing platform. They do things the way they do it. Then they dump that data to the bank and say, okay, here is what you asked me to provide you. The bank then looks at it and says, okay, I don't know how to all bring it in. So they spend a ton of time ingesting that data, cleaning it, homogenizing it, because we all know garbage in, garbage out. So how do you drive insight? And millions of dollars are spent. And there are technologies out there and vendors out there that will take your dollars. And they will say, hey, I have this amazing data platform and I want you to use this, right? The challenge is not the platform. Challenge is that people don't know what to do with it. So what did we do differently and where did HPCC help us? Is if you look at it, our use case is very similar to LexisNexis's use case. You have multiple sources of data that are telling you different things coming from different sources, some legacy, some more modern. So you have JSON, XML on one side and traditional flat files, that are coming out of green screen on the other side. We have to take it in, we have to connect all the dots, we have to homogenize it, and we have to create a data repository in the middle that drives value out of it, right? Which includes, for us, value means reporting that comes out of it, insights that come out of it, machine learning algorithms that we run out of it. So all of that for us runs on HPCC systems, right? I don't have to have a third-party ETL tool. I don't have to have a third-party reporting tool. None of that. All of this runs on top of HPCC systems for us. We have integrated to 50, 60 different payments providers. So what that means to us is fast to market, which means we can implement a customer as less as 2 weeks. And we can code to somebody new in between 4 to 6 weeks, which is unheard of in the industry. Typically, when we came to the industry in 2017, the implementation time cycles have been 1 year, 18 months, 2 years, and so on and so forth. And by the way, this implementation is also costing them dollars, right, by the hour. So the longer it goes, somebody is getting super rich doing this, right? But the product is not live. And so we fundamentally changed that, saying we are going to focus more on getting the product live and getting it done right. So HPCC helped us tremendously. But the way I look at HPCC, it's a very technical tool. Obviously, it's meant for technologists and it meant for developers and so on and so forth. So how does a business user interact with HPCC? So we developed technology around it, right? So think about it this way: that we have a curtain, and the curtain's showing the movie, and it's beautiful, but there is amazing things going on behind the curtain. There is teams of people, data orchestration, synchronization, things are moving here and there. Think about the old style theater production, right? You see what's in front of the curtain. You actually don't see what's behind, but there is a lot more fun going on behind than there is going on in the front to coordinate all of this, right? So that's us. So the behind the stage for us is HPCC. In front of the stage is stuff like Node.js and React, which is very popular in the industry. Facebook has made it popular. Airbnb has made it popular. So we use Node and React, and we just use web services to communicate back and forth with HPCC. So a user can pull whatever data they want, pull up whatever report they want, have their workflows designed while they're interacting with HPCC in real time. So the data is actually coming in to us in real time. We use Thor to ingest data in real time, which is very rare, right? So we have technologies where we'll take the data in through an API, it goes in a queue, Thor is pulling that queue while there is decisions being made by Roxy on the fly. So the customer knows, hey, this is what has happened. And so we have developed these pipelines, right? Faster pipeline for data, slower pipeline for data. So things happen during the night where more cleaning will happen. So the data that's clean up to, let's say, 80%, within the hour could be clean 90% by the end of the day, could be clean 99% by end of the week, and so on and so forth. So all of that orchestration is actually done through UI for us. And that entire UI sits in a very powerful application called Seer Portal. So for us, we are able to do MDM, which is master data management, auditing, authentication, authorization, all of that through our layer. But the real PCI, PII data is sitting in HPCC, which is completely encrypted, access controlled, and nobody can connect to it except, as you go through the right channels and connectors.
That is a very cool implementation. I really enjoy all of these moving parts and the fact that HPCC Systems is powering this behind the scenes. But tell me a little bit more about the ECL code base that you have. Yeah, now you hinted at a fairly large chunk of work that is happening on HPCC Systems, and all of that must have some ECL development behind the scenes, right? So how are you dealing with all of this? Do you have your own team of ECL developers? How do you feed that team? Do you have a pipeline of people that can join your organization on time when you need them?
Yeah. So some of the things that we did very early is we developed some building blocks, right? So when you go into our code, and let's say I want to run or read 1 day's worth of transactions, right? You're not writing very complex ECL. You're basically going and saying this dot, this dot, this dot, date, read, right? And giving a date. So it does all the work behind you. So obviously we have this complex structure of how our data is organized, where it is compressed, where it is indexed, and all of that. So the writing of the code mostly these days has become abstract, right? So you basically run 1 line of code that gets you exactly the data you want. Then you manipulate that data and write 1 line of code to write it exactly where you want to write it, right? So the response is, the read and write has been completely abstracted. And in the middle, you have to just figure out how do you want to transform the data, right? Now, the beauty is, when I first started learning ECL, I tell all this to our young kids here. When I started learning ECL, I didn't want to do it. It's like something new, right? You have tremendous resistance. You have denial saying, why do you want to use this? There's other tools out there, but it happens with everything. And then you kind of accept like, wait, I'm starting to get the hang of it now. Then you go and say, wow, I really like it now. And then you fall in love, right? And you're like, oh my God, this is so easy. So, we make sure that we take all of our employees through that process saying it's okay to hate ECL when you first joined. There's nothing wrong with it, right? If you didn't hate it and you loved it, I would be like, is there something wrong with you? Like, you should hate it. It's different, right? That's human nature. And so one of the challenges we have is recruiting from these.
I apologize for interrupting. Someone once said, I was born to learn ECL, and that was a little bit suspicious.
Well, so I'll tell you this. A person told me that, I dream in SQL. So I said, explain your dreams to me just using SQL, right? And then he was like, wait, I can't. So, these kids have a tremendous resistance because what they're chasing really is they're chasing usually money and jobs and positions. So somebody tells them that, listen, if you learn R, I'll make you a data scientist. If you learn Scala or Python, I'll make you a data scientist. So they're just chasing those titles. What I tell these people is that data science really is 95% of understanding that data and knowing how to use it, and 5% of algorithms, right? Because you're not really writing those algorithms. If you don't know how to use that data, then what are you going to do? And the amount of time it actually takes you from unusable data to usable data using ECL versus any other code, ECL is at least 10 times more efficient from our perspective, right? It's quirky, right? It's quirky. I'll call it what it is. It has its own ways of doing things. Like a lot of people ask us, well, why does it skew? Why is this, right? So I give them an example, right? You have 10 pieces of candy and you have to evenly distribute it amongst 5 people. How would you do it? Well, each one gets 2. Well, now we have 11 pieces of candy. How are you going to distribute it evenly? You can't, right? Unless you start cutting the candy, right? And so that's where, the things you have to think through. So teaching these young kids, we are going to colleges. We are offering a job. We are moving those people to Atlanta because we are an in-person location here. We are not remote because some of these things are hard. The ECL is not hard, but it's not easy until you get to that. So I always tell people the initial climb may look like this, but then after that it's all plateau because it's all 6 functions. That's it. You master those 6 functions and that's it. You're a master of ECL. So we teach these kids, we set up sessions. We obviously go through the trainings, like everybody goes through Bob's trainings in our company. Everybody knows who Bob is in our company, right? Because they have gone through those trainings. Then we have our own training on top of it. And then, we then take them through an advanced training because not everybody uses things, right? And our use case is different. We don't have a Thor programmer or a Roxy programmer or somebody who can maintain DALI or who can set up a machine. All of our people can do all of it, right? They know how gen indexes work. They know how Thor works. They know how HTHOR works. They know how all of this orchestrates. So it's a little bit of a different mindset. And I prefer almost having a blank slate. Like I'll take a kid from college who knows nothing and teach them from scratch rather than a 10-year experienced person who's every day going to tell me that, Hadoop is better, Hadoop is better, Hadoop is better. I mean, it's just like, it's not that it's better. You have to look at what's good for your use case. If Lexis invented technology for a use case of having multiple data sources, homogenizing it and driving value, and that's exactly our use case is taking these data sets, homogenizing it and driving value, then why would we use something else, right?
Yeah, that is a great answer. So just to conclude, and I don't want to make this too long, how do you see this playing in the future? What do you think tomorrow will bring for your implementation of HPC systems, your business, and your growth as a company?
So HPCC has gotten us speed and scale for sure. It has also gotten us quite a bit of stability, right? So the code is now very mature and it's now quite stable to a point where, we can make changes and we have so many things, fail safes in place that, things will not fall apart. We are able to scale. We are just now going through a massive scaling of basically making sure that where we are now in terms of scale, and I'll give an example. We have 700 million odd accounts, about 50 billion transactions that we monitor for various different things that we do, right? The goal is to go from here to 30x. And going from here to 30x, the infrastructure cost is negligible because, HPCC doesn't need something fancy. So we are able to use technology both from a hardware perspective and from a software perspective and create something that would typically cost us millions of dollars in licensing and AWS and Azure fees and so on and so forth, that we can do it at a fraction of a cost. And what that means is when companies spend, and then somebody says, well, how are you going to make money? And that's when they cut cost. We actually have been spending very wisely. So we have a very good profitability from that perspective, right? We are not spending what we don't need to spend. And HPCC, I think, gives us that, it's a meat on the plate, right? It gives us that fillet for a price of a chicken wing, right? So that's where it actually makes a lot of sense for us. So for us, scaling equals just making sure we can keep building. We have a lot of stuff to build a product around the whole HPCC infrastructure. So HPCC will keep growing for us and adding more and more and more data as we grow, because that's our heart and brain.
This is great, Adwait. And I need to thank you very much for this talk. It's been quite enlightening. I really enjoy always talking to you about this. I see your practical view of things and how they really had a positive impact in your business. You didn't overbuild things. You just built what you needed, and you continue to leverage the same philosophy to grow your business as well. So again, thank you very much for this talk.
Thank you for having me.